The man convicted of 6 people and injuring dozens more in the Waukesha Christmas parade attack is headed back to trial, this time for crimes he's charged with in Milwaukee County.
Thank you for that answer.
In Waukesha, a town known for its annual Christmas parade, the community looked forward to the festive tradition, especially after the cancellation in 2020 due to the pandemic. However, the 2021 parade turned into a nightmare when a man, Daryl Brooks, drove his vehicle into the crowd. What many didn't know was that Daryl Brooks was also an alleged gangster. On November 21st, 2021, around 4:39 p.m., the 39-year-old Daryl Brooks drove a red 2010 Ford Escape SUV moving at about 40 miles per hour, 64 kilometers per hour, past barricades and through the annual Christmas parade. In Waukesha, one police officer banged on the hood of the SUV in an attempt to get Brooks to stop. In the final stage of the rampage, an officer fired his gun in an attempt to stop the vehicle. But unfortunately, that was not enough to stop the bloodbath that followed.
The last thing I heard was the band music, and then I heard the vehicle, almost the engine revving, speeding up, speeding along the route, and then just heard a loud bang and screams and cries. People in pain, fear, and agony.
The parade was live streamed, so other attendees that captured the incident on videos later posted to social media. 2 eyewitnesses told reporters that the driver did not initially stop. All they could hear was people screaming and crying. One witness described the driver as calm and composed. Police reported that the driver deliberately targeted the crowd, driving in a zigzag pattern to hit as many people as possible. During the immediate aftermath of the ramming, 5 people were confirmed unalived and 48 others were injured. The 5 dead were identified as 4 women and 1 man. 4 of the dead were members of the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies, a dance group composed solely of grandmothers. Hospitals admitted 28 people, 9 of whom were in critical condition. 17 children were among the wounded, with 3 remaining hospitalized at Children's Wisconsin until early December. By November 23, 2 days after the incident, the number of people reported injured had increased to 62, and the number of fatalities had increased to 6 after an 8-year-old child died at a hospital. The ages of the dead ranged from 8 to 81. After the attack, the police found the damaged Ford Escape and arrested Daryl Brooks Jr. He was 39 years old at the time. Born in Milwaukee, Darrell had been in trouble with the law since September 1999. According to police records, when Darrell was young, he didn't have a father around, but his mother was supportive. His grandmother wrote a letter to the court saying Darrell started experiencing bipolar disorder when he was 12 years old after he went to the hospital for mental health reasons in 1994. Darrell didn't finish high school because he got into trouble when he was 17. He was charged with the serious crime of substantial battery. As a result, he was sent to jail for 2 years, had 3 years of probation, and spent 6 months at the Milwaukee County Community Reintegration Center in Franklin. Brooks was arrested on the night of the attack. Soon after, he told a Waukesha resident that he was homeless and asked to use his phone to call an Uber. The man was unaware of the events that had occurred and permitted Brooks briefly inside his home, giving him a sandwich and letting him borrow a jacket, but asked him to leave when police arrived. Brooks left the man's home and surrendered to police without incident. Despite his alleged gang ties, it was believed Brooks acted alone and did not know anyone at the parade. Police investigated whether he was fleeing away from a nearby domestic disturbance when encountering the parade. The police chief said, quote, "We have information that the suspect prior to the incident was involved in a domestic disturbance, which was just minutes prior, and the suspect left that scene just prior to our arrival to that domestic disturbance." He also said that Brooks was not being chased by police when he drove into the parade route. Prosecutors alleged that Brooks was trying to strike and hurt as many people as possible. Now, Brooks faced criminal charges in Manitowoc in 2005. Following this, in November 2006, he was convicted of a felony statutory sexual seduction after impregnating a 15-year-old girl in Sparks, Nevada. He pleaded guilty in March 2007 and was sentenced to 12 to 36 months at the Northern Nevada Correctional Center in Carson City. He was released in September 2008. Brooks then had subsequent criminal charges in Wisconsin Rapids in 2010. In 2016, he was made subject to a warrant of a statutory S crime in Sparks, Nevada. This warrant remained outstanding at the time of the November 2021 attack. Brooks had been registered for life as an offender in Wisconsin since 2020. Another incident occurred in July 2020 in Milwaukee, where Brooks got into a fight with his nephew and a friend over a cell phone. Things got really dangerous when Brooks allegedly fired a gun at them. He ended up in trouble with the law, facing charges for putting them in serious danger and for having a gun illegally. He was put in jail until his trial, but he couldn't pay the $10,000 bail to get out. The trial got pushed back, and eventually he got released on a lower $500 bond in February 2021. 5 months and 5 weeks prior to the Waukesha attack, Brooks was arrested in relation to domestic violence while staying at the Country Hearth Inn in Union City, Georgia. A witness told police that he was staying in the room next to Brooks when he overheard him arguing with and beating up his ex-girlfriend, causing the witness to confront Brooks. According to WXIA-TV, Brooks flashed a firearm in front of the ex-girlfriend during the argument. After spending the rest of the day behind bars at the East Point Law Enforcement Center in East Point, Brooks appeared in court the following day on March 28th. He received a signature bond but never made it to the signature court date. Fast forward to November 2nd, 2021, 3 weeks prior to the Waukesha attack, Brooks punched his ex-girlfriend before running her over with his vehicle. The subsequent charges held against him included second-degree recklessly endangering safety with domestic abuse assessments, a felony, as well as disorderly conduct with domestic abuse assessments. Brooks posted $1,000 bail on November 19th, 2 days before the Waukesha attack, and was released the same day. Now, Brooks was initially charged with 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. Following the death of a 6th victim, Brooks' bond was set at $5 million, and he remained in custody following an initial court appearance. The Waukesha County District Attorney said more charges were likely to come and charged Brooks with a 6th count of first-degree intentional homicide. On November 29th, when Brooks was interviewed by Fox News while he was in custody, he said, quote, "I just feel like I'm being a monster, demonized." His mother wrote a letter to the media saying Brooks had a long history of mental health problems and no health insurance to pay for treatment. In December, Brooks was charged further for the November 21st incident with charges of intimidating a witness and intimidation of a victim, both felonies. He is alleged to have called his girlfriend from jail over several days and threatened her to prevent her cooperation with the investigation. And then in January 2022, 77 additional charges were filed against Brooks for the parade attack, including 61 counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety with a dangerous weapon, 6 counts of hit and run involving death, 2 counts of felony bail jumping, and 2 counts of domestic abuse. The latter charges are in relation to 2 altercations between Brooks and his girlfriend on the day of the attack and the day before. Then came January 14th, 2022. There was a court hearing in Waukesha. Commissioner Kevin Costello said there was enough proof for Daryl Brooks to be tried in court. Detective Thomas Casey from the Waukesha Police talked in the hearing. He said he and other cops shouted at Brooks to stop, but Brooks kept driving his car in a zigzag, hitting people. Brooks' lawyer, Anna Keyes, said Brooks was high at the time. She said the cops who arrested him saw that he smelled like weed and had red, shiny eyes. Keyes also said Brooks didn't want to hurt anyone. She said he couldn't even look at pictures of the people he hurt. But Susan Opper, the district attorney, said Brooks could have stopped. Even if he was high, he still did many bad things. On February 11th, 2022, Brooks pleaded not guilty to all charges. Defense attorney Jeremy Perry entered 2 motions, requesting in the first one for a different trial in a different county, claiming that Brooks was unlikely to receive a fair and impartial jury trial in grief-stricken Waukesha, citing the ubiquitous Waukesha strong solidarity moment within the county. The second motion requested a new judge for the case, for which no reason was given. Court Commissioner Costello denied the first motion but granted the second motion, reassigning the case from Judge Michael Barron to Chief Judge Jennifer Darrow. 1 month later, Darrow scheduled Brooks' trial for October 3rd, 2022 at the Waukesha County Circuit Court. Before jury selection, 1 count of domestic battery was dropped by the prosecutors. Also, in a pre-trial hearing, Brooks requested self-representation. Judge Darrow considered the request and ruled that Brooks could proceed. During proceedings, Brooks used arguments from the sovereign citizen movement, a pseudo-legal movement whose adherents claim that courts do not have jurisdiction over them. Brooks declared himself to be sovereign, stated that he did not consent to being recognized by his name, asked if the court was a common law court or an admiralty law court, and argued that since the state of Wisconsin was an entity rather than a person, it could not file a claim against him. These arguments had not succeeded before in criminal trials. Judge Darrow ruled that Brooks was not allowed to argue that he was a sovereign citizen in court, stating that the defense was without merit. During his trial, Brooks was reportedly removed from the courtroom after failing to comply with decorum. Some of these instances included Brooks engaging in numerous interruptions, backtalking, glaring, and other outbursts with Judge Darrow. On October 24, 2022, Brooks was given the chance to offer the defense. However, due to Brooks' repeated misbehavior and failing to follow decorum, Judge Darrell ruled that he had forfeited his rights to call further witnesses, which would have included his mother, and declared the evidentiary stage of the trial over. Closing arguments began on October 25th, and the jury deliberations began that same day.
All right, we're gonna take a break and we're gonna come back after lunch. I'm not gonna do this with him right now. He needs to be here. He's not cooperating. I'm gonna give you the warning, Mr. I will give you the warning.
Before giving his closing argument, Brooks asked Judge Darrow if she had instructed the jury on jury nullification. Darrow sent the jury away so that she could warn Brooks, outside their presence, that he was not allowed to make that argument. Darrow cited case law which held that jury nullification was not a proper argument and that she had the power to shut down any argument that went outside the bounds of the law. Brooks engaged in a lengthy debate with the judge, during which he insisted that he be allowed to inform the jury of the truth. Darrow maintained her position and warned Brooks that if he persisted in raising the issue of jury nullification, he would forfeit his right to give a closing argument. Eventually, the prosecution suggested that rather than immediately revoking his right to a closing argument, Brooks would be allowed to make his closing argument and the prosecution would handle any improper arguments through objection. The judge agreed. Within the first minute of his closing argument, Brooks argued for jury nullification. The prosecution swiftly objected and the jury was told to disregard the argument. And then on October 26th, the jury returned with guilty verdicts on all 76 counts, after deliberating for a total of 3 hours and 15 minutes. Brooks was sentenced on November 16th, 2022. Judge Darrow imposed 6 life sentences without parole, one for each of the deceased victims, to be served consecutively. For the 61 counts of reckless endangerment, she sentenced Brooks to a total of 762 years of initial confinement and 305 years of extended supervision. For the 6 counts of hit and run, he received 150 years to run concurrently with the reckless endangerment sentences. After the scary scene at the Waukesha Christmas parade, folks from all over shared their feelings. The governor of Wisconsin, Tony Evers, thanked the people who helped out and showed support for those affected. He even said flags should be lowered to honor the victims. People condemned the attack, calling it a horrific act of violence. Wisconsin senators released a joint statement asking people to avoid using the event for political purposes. Pope Francis sent prayers and condolences to the victims on a message signed on his behalf. Waukesha County Executive Paul Farrow posted on social media and stated, quote, "Please pray for our community tonight after the horrific events at the Waukesha Christmas parade." The attack triggered a backlash against bail reform. Brooks was released on $1,000 bail 2 weeks before the attack when he was arrested for allegedly running over a woman with his vehicle during an altercation. And the attack came at a time when the COVID-19 pandemic had resulted in courts wanting to reduce jail crowding to reduce risk of infection by giving lower bail requests. After the incident had occurred, cops said everyone had to stay inside their houses for a while, but then changed their minds later that same day. The schools decided it wasn't safe for kids to come in, so they canceled classes and had extra people there to talk to if anyone needed it. People all over the city came together to remember what had happened and to support each other. A week later, they all took a moment of silence to honor the folks who got hurt or worse. There was this hotline set up by Children's Wisconsin for anyone who felt sad or messed up by what went down. The First Lady, Jill Biden, came to town to meet with families who lost loved ones and to join in on a memorial for them. People didn't just sit around feeling bad though, they pitched in to help. Folks gave money on GoFundMe, raising almost $1 million for the folks hurt in the attack. And get this, another bunch of donations hit over $1.8 million for the United for Waukesha Community Fund. Local workers even stepped up to build wheelchair ramps for the people who got hurt and would need them. By March of the next year, the Community Fund said they'd raised over $6.2 million to help out the victims.